Alright guys, this question is previously from the previous review. So we already done it. There's no correct answer for this one, but let's just go over those questions just to make sure that we understand. So again, this negative is going to distribute. So we're trying to match which expression is equivalent. Equivalent means the same, okay? So we're going to distribute the negative, so this is going to be 4 minus I minus 3 now and minus 2I. We're going to combine like terms. So this is going to make it a 1. And negative I minus 2I is going to make it negative 3I. So that is not equivalent to 1 plus I, okay? B, you're going to distribute the I. You're going to get I cubed plus I squared. Remember that I cubed is represented by negative I, and I squared is represented by negative 1, okay? Now, again, you're adding the negative, so to put it in the correct form, this is going to be negative 1 minus I, okay, which is also not equivalent to 1 plus I. These, number C, we're going to do a box method, okay? So it's going to be 2. It's going to be 2 negative I, 1. So that's going to be 2I. This is going to be negative I squared. This is going to be 2, and this is going to be negative I. We're going to combine like terms. Okay, the like terms are visible right here. So you get 2. You get 2I minus I, which is I. Then you get negative I squared. Now, a lot of y'all made a mistake here because you're replacing I squared with negative 1. This negative stays, so make sure you understand that you have minus negative 1 now. Okay, and then I, and then 2. Okay, so this is going to change it to positive. So you're going to really have 3 plus I. Okay, and then lastly, you guys are going to divide 20 by 4 and 21 by 4. Okay, when you divide 20 by 4, obviously you get a whole number, which is 5. So we are going to get 5, it's a 0 cent, so we're going to replace it with I to a 0 power. Now minus, when you're dividing 21 by 4, okay, you get 5/25. Okay, so that's 1/4. So we're going to replace it with I to the first power. Now we also know that I to a 0 power is 1, and I to a first power is itself, which is negative I. Okay, it also does not match. So there's no right answer for this question for some reason. All right. Now we're solving for x. Okay. So again, you have to distribute first. So I'm going to rewrite it as 2 plus 5I minus 16 plus xi now has to equal to negative 14 plus 9i. Again, I'm only going to pick the I parts. So I get 5I plus xi equals 9i. All right? I'm going to just solve for x. I'm going to take the 5i away first. Subtract 5i from both sides. Okay? And xi now equals 4i, where i's will drop because they're proportional to each side of the equation. So x equals 4. All right? Now, the second question right here, I do not need to distribute anything. I'm distributing the 1 in theory, but again, positive does not change anything. So I'm simply going to drop the parentheses. So 1 minus 3i plus 5i plus 5, now minus xi equals 6. Oops. Sorry about that, guys. Equals 6 minus 7i. Okay? Now again, this positive 1 there did not change any sign. Okay, it's a positive. So now again, I'm going to just do I parts. So I got negative 3i minus xi has to equal negative 7i. So I'm going to add 3i to both sides. Okay. And it's being weird. Alright, this is going to zero out. I'm going to have negative xi now equals 4i. Okay. Negative 4i. I forget it was negative 7. And now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1, or you can do negative I, either or. Alright, so this negatives will cancel, so x will equal 4 again. So that the i's will cancel as well. Okay? Alright, number 16. Again, I like to plug those functions into Desmos to see what my answer is and then try to prove it and make sure that I do the right thing. So I plugged it into Desmos right here. My two intercepts, my two solutions, -2 and -0.4, okay? So -2, -0.4, -0.4 is also -2/5, okay? So the answers were -2 and -0.4, which is also -2/5, okay? Now, I'm going to use the 8 times C method, but I don't want to do the big, giant 10 times 80. Again, I don't like it, so I'm going to see if I can take anything out. I can divide each of them by 2 as a greater common factor. Okay, so if I put 2 on the outside, I get, on the inside, I'm going to get 5x squared plus 12x plus 4. Now, I'm only going to use what's inside the parentheses. So 5 times 4 is going to give me 20, and it has to equal to 12. 2 factors, it's 2 and 10. Again, 2 is on the outside, I get x plus 2 and x plus 10. Alright. Now, if I equal them to 0, I'm going to get x equals -2 and -10. And I just said these are my correct answers using Desmos. So I know I'm missing something. Again, just like on the test, I'm going to look and say, oh, where am I missing? Well, I'm missing the 5, okay? So I'm going to divide each of them by the leading coefficient of the equation that I'm solving. So now 2 will equal 0. That's not true. 2 does not equal 0. X plus 2/5 will equal 0. And x plus 2 will equal 0. Now when I do equal them to 0, x will equal -2/5, and x will equal -2. It's exactly what matches Desmos, right? Because -0.4 is -2/5. All right? So if you need to write it down, pause the video because I'm going to erase it. All right, number 17, the same thing. You can check your answers in Desmos. I would highly encourage to save time. I'm just going to go ahead and solve it. Again, I don't want to multiply 2 times 30 and try to figure it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can divide it by something. I got 2, 4, and 30. I know I can divide it by 2. I'm going to take a 2 out. So that's going to be just x squared left -2x and then minus 15, okay? I'm going to find 2 factors and multiply to -15. But add to -2, that's 3 and 5, and 5 has to be negative, okay? So 2 on the outside, I get x plus 3, I get x minus 5. When I equal them to 0, x will equal -3, and then x will equal +5. Now 2 does not equal 0, so that's not a true statement, okay? And I know for a fact that when you graph, it's going to match my answer. And then the last one, I'm going to multiply again. 1 times 12, that's a 12 again. I would encourage you to check the answers, and then in Desmos. And then do 7, so the 2 factors in 3 and 4. So this is going to be x plus 3 and x plus 4, which means x will equal -3 and -4 after we equal them to 0, okay? All right. 19, we are missing a b, so I'm just going to go ahead and solve for x. I'm not going to try to square root nothing until later, so I'm just going to move 64 to the other side. So I'm solving for x. I'm moving everything away. So 16x squared now equals -64. Okay, you are dividing by 16, not subtracting 16, okay? Dividing both sides by 16, okay? All right, so now x squared will equal -4. Now, because I have a negative number, and to get rid of the square, I'm going to square root it. Boom. That tells me I have an I. It's going to be a negative. Okay, so it's going to be x equals plus or minus, because remember we have possibilities, and it's going to be 2i. Okay? All right, next one. Again, I know you guys want to put that in the box and solve it. That's a long way around. I would just simply move the 2 and solve for x. Okay? I'm moving the 2. So I get x minus 1 squared now equals 8. Now to get rid of that square, because I'm trying to separate the square itself so I can square root it, okay? Now, when I separate it, this will go away, so I get x minus 1 here. And then the answer is plus or minus, and square root of 8 is 2 root 2. There is no I, okay? And then all I have to do is add the 1, add the 1. At the end, x will equal 1 plus or minus 2 root 2. You do not combine the radicals with real numbers, okay? And then the last one right here. Well, 8 times 4 has to add to 6. I know for a fact I cannot find factors for this one. So I'm going to have to use quadratic equation. Now, I want you to pause the video if you need to write down what I just wrote, because I'm going to erase. All right, so I'm going to use a quadratic formula. Okay, so that's again, x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2 times a. Okay, so we're going to plug in our numbers in. Just make sure you're reading the correct numbers and you're reading the negatives, okay? So this is your a, this is your b, and this is your c. So b squared, so that's negative b, negative 6 plus or minus square root of b squared, so that's 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is negative 8, times c, which is negative 4, all divided by 2 times a, which is negative 8. Okay, now you're only taking what's underneath the radical and putting it into the calculator. So you're repeating the 6, negative 6 plus or minus. Now, when you do put all of this 6 squared into the calculator minus 4 times negative 8, you should get negative 92, okay? And then 2 times negative 8 is negative 16. Now, this is negative, means I, okay? Right there. So, I'm going to rewrite it here. It's negative 6 plus or minus. Now, square root of 92 is 2 root 23. I also have an I there. Divided by negative 16. Now, I don't like negative 16 on the bottom. I don't. So, when I'm dividing and simplifying the 6, the 2, and the 16, the common factor is 2. I'm going to divide it by negative 2 because I don't want negative on the bottom. So I can divide this by negative 2, which is going to give me positive 8. All right, negative 16 divided by negative 2 is positive 8. Positive 8. Negative 6 divided by negative 2 is positive 3. And 2 divided by negative 2 is still going to be plus or minus I. Okay? My final answer is 3 plus or minus I, but this get just one, root 23 divided by 8. Okay? All right. Here we're talking about simply finding a mistake. Okay? So first, make sure we set it up correctly. We're going to move the 9 to the other side. The function should look like x squared minus 8x minus 9 now. Now let's make sure that it's plugged in correctly, okay? So we would have negative b, okay, plus or minus square root of negative 8 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 9, all divided by 2 times a. So let's make sure that these are the numbers that we're looking at. So right here, I can tell a mistake. Okay, the person, whoever did it, forgot that it was a negative b, which would make this a positive. Okay, so that would be the mistake. It would be 8 plus or minus. Here, even though they didn't plug in negative 8 in here, because you square it, it's still going to be the same number, but it is going to end up being 100, and then 2 matches. So it's just the mistake was right here. But the correct answers would be 8 plus or minus 10 over 2. And that breaks to 2 answers. 8 plus 10 over 2, which is 18 over 2, which is 9. And 8 minus 10 over 2. So that's negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. Okay? So the answers are not correct. Alright, now we're calculating a discriminant. Just remember that the formula for discriminant is b squared minus 4 times a times c, which is underneath the radical of the quadratic formula. Now we also are asked to give how many and what type of solution. Okay, the number and type of solution. Okay, so the first one, we have to move the 12 to the left first because you want to make sure it's equal to 0 before you do anything. You get negative 6x squared minus 4x minus 1 equals 0. Now you are going to put it into the formula, b squared minus 4 times a times c. So I'm just going to set it up for you guys. So it is going to be negative 4 squared minus 4 times negative 6 times negative 1. Okay, when you put this all into the calculator, all right, you are going to get negative 8. Negative 8 means 2 imaginary. So, okay, because again, negative discriminant was underneath the radical right here. Okay, if I have a negative discriminant, this is where it goes, right here. So if I have negative 8 right here, I know that that's going to be an I. Okay, because that's where the formula that discriminant comes from. And this is going to be 2 imaginary. Okay. All right, next one, you're going to move the 9 to the other side. You're going to have negative x squared minus 6x minus 9 equals 0. Okay, now you're going to have, again, that's your A, that's your B, and that's your C. So when you're plugging it into this formula right here, you have negative 6 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times negative 9. Okay, when you put all of it in the calculator, you're going to get a 0. What does 0 mean? Okay, if I have a formula of negative b plus or minus square root of 0 over 2a, okay, I am going to end up having one answer because you're adding zeros here. So you're not getting 2 answers right here. Okay, you're getting one answer. Okay, so when you have a discriminant of 0, that means you have one real solution. That also means that, and again, you can check that by plugging these into Desmos, but you're going to have a solution of, let's just say, something here. Okay, I'm not saying that's what it is, just giving an example. It's just going to toss it and bounce it in one place. Okay, so that's one root. All right, one root. Okay. All right, now pause it if you need to, because I'm going to erase it. All right, and the last one again, this is your A, this is your B, and this is your C. So it's B squared, so that's 11 squared minus 4 times A, which is 8, times C, which is 3. Okay, and so if you put all of this in a calculator, and again, it has to be, the 11 squared has to be in a parentheses, okay? The negative 6 squared previously has to be in a parentheses, otherwise you're going to get a wrong answer, okay? So if you do that, you're going to get a number 25, all right? Which means two real solutions, okay? Because this is a positive number, so when it goes under the radical, you're going to get 2 real numbers, okay? Right, this is an inequality, so we're going to graph that just to make sure that, you know, we got it correctly. All right, so I put it in Desmos. It's x squared minus x minus 14 is going to be less than or equal to 0. Boom. We'll graph it here for you guys. Okay, here are your points, and it is in between points. Okay, in between points. So now, what does that mean? That means A and B do not belong. Okay, it is in between points, so it has to be C or D. And we know that the points were, I wrote them down right here, it was negative 3.275 and 4.275, okay? When I'm looking back right here, guys, I get negative 2.75 on the left and 4.275 on the right, okay? And again, I am shaded on in the middle, okay? So I'm going to be in between the points, so it has to be D because it comes from negative 3.275 and it ends at 4.275, okay? All right, now for 24, again, I'm going to graph it for you guys. All right, so I got ax squared plus 16x minus 42, and that's going to be greater or equal to 0, okay? So now again, as you're looking, we are shaded on the outside of the point, and one point is negative 3.5, and one point is 1.5. So we're going to make a line here, okay, for number 24. The points were negative 3.5, and the points were 1.5. And again, we are shaded on the outskirts, okay? So we're coming from negative infinity, and we're going towards positive. So I'm going to have answer more like A and a B in the other one. So again, I'm starting from negative infinity, okay? And then it has to be less than, because infinity, we don't know what it is, x, and it's going to be less or greater to, because if we have the equal sign there, of the negative 3.5, okay? Or we're going to do the outer point, so we start back up at 1.5, so it's going to be 1.5. Again, the less than or equal to sign, because that's a number, x, and less than infinity, okay? Because we're going from here to this one, all right? And then we're coming from here to this one. Again, if you want to make sure that you work it out, you would put it into a quadratic equation formula, okay? Get two answers as x equals negative 3.5 and 1.5. Put it on a number line, and then you will pick numbers. I would pick 0, I will put negative 4, and I will pick 2. And you would plug it right back in. I will take 0, and I will plug it in here. 0 squared, okay, times 0. This would be just 0. And I will have negative 42 is greater or equal to 0. That is not true. So that's why we're shading here, because the middle is not true, which means the sides have to be true. All right, this question right here, we would again put it into decimals for the solving the equation. All right, so here it is, negative 3x squared minus 11x minus 5, and on the second line is 2x squared plus 10x minus 7. What we're looking for is where the two functions cross each other. When do they run into each other? So be careful, because there's a bunch of other points. So if you need to zoom it in, make sure this is where they're crossing, okay, in this decimal, so 0.093 and negative 60.51. And then the second place they're crossing is right here. Again, it's going to be a decimal of negative 4.293 and negative 13.069. So again, you're looking at where do they cross each other, okay? So not where do they cross y-axis, where do they cross each other, okay? So the two systems of equations, it will be written in a point form. Please make sure it has correct parentheses. It would be at 0.093, comma, negative 60.51. And then the second point where they cross is at negative 4.293, and then negative 13.069. Okay? And that's the point. All right, now here, do they cross right here, and do they cross right here? So from what I'm seeing, the approximate points are 0 on x, and negative 13, almost like negative 11, I would say, almost. I think I put 13 on a key. So it looks more like 11 on here. And then the second point would be a positive kind of 5.5. It looks like it, approximately in negative 16.5. And again, this is just approximation, so it's okay if you get it close enough, okay? All right, and the last question is a regression. Okay, let me graph it very quick. All right, so again, we're going to do the plus and the table. We're going to put the table in. So 6, 9, 12. All right, I put the table in. Okay, it's an x1 and y1 table. And then when I go to the second line right here, I'm going to put y1, because I'm referring to this table right here. Okay, so y1, then a wiggly symbol in the left top corner of your keyboard, and then we're going to put a quadratic formula, which is ax squared, and we're going to add 1 to it because we're referring to the table, okay, plus bx 1 plus c. Okay, that's going to give us exactly the numbers right here that we need. Okay, these are my a, b's, and c's. So when you ask to fill in this equation right here, okay, you are going to just simply put it in together in a quadratic formula. So your a was negative 0.1012x squared, plus your b was 6.744366x, and then your c was negative 18.2536. Okay, so that is your equation for the regression, for the quadratic regression. Now it's asking you, use the regression multiplier to determine how happy would an individual be that works 60 hours a week. So we're going to take this and plug it in, and instead of this x right here, okay, and instead of this x, we're going to put at 60 there, okay, and square it, and then we're going to put times 60 here, and we're going to put it into the calculator. And when you put it into the calculator, you're going to have negative 0.1012 times 60 squared, and then plus 6.74436 times 60, okay? All right, times 60, and then minus the 18.2536. Okay, now when you do that, you should get 22. All right, and 22, the level of happiness is 22 according to the level. Hope that helps, guys. Again, the video of the test is in the Monday folder.